Good afternoon, everyone. I, Professor S.S. Kukde from Electronics and Telecommunication Department, on behalf of Dr. Rajendra Gode Institute of Technology and Research, Amravati, extend a very hearty welcomes to all the participants and the speaker of this session to Dr. Sanju Sharma sir in AICTE ISTS sponsored induction refresher program on advanced VLSI design using microwave. Dr. Sanju Sharma sir has received BTech degree in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering from MGP Rohilkhand University, Uttar Pradesh in 2001. He has done PG Diploma in VLSI from CDAC. He received ME and PhD degree in VLSI from Rashtrasanta Tukdoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur in the year of 2008 and 2006 respectively. After 7 years of industrial experience and 13 years of academic experience, he joined New Horizon College of Engineering, Bangalore in the 2018. Currently, he is leading the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering. He has more than 20 years of academic cum research experience. His contributions are counted in the field of low power VLSI applications. He has successfully advised 32 master graduates and currently guiding PhD students under the Vishweshwaraya Technological University, Karnataka. Sir has published 42 technical papers in reputed journals and conference proceeding with 4 international book chapter, authored book, and the provisionally filled 7 patents. He also won Best Teacher Award in the year of 2018 from STAMI. He is processing many professional body membership like IIT, IST. He is editorial board member of IJTES Journal, American Journal of Science, Engineering and Technology, and reviewer of global research and development journals. He is eminent reviewer for PhD thesis for Nagpur University and Bhagwant University. Now, I requesting Dr. Sanju Sharma sir for the further proceeding.
Well, very good afternoon to each and everyone. My voice is audible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I would like to thank you for calling me for this particular session. And definitely you have given a very short profile of mine in a very better way. And we can start this session.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just share my screen. And my screen is visible to you all now, Roy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can we start this session?
Yes, sir. You can start.
Okay, thank you. So basically, we'll be in this particular session, we'll be talking about the optimization of digital circuit in VLSI design. So as the name is suggesting, it's an optimization. That means definitely we need to optimize in terms of area, in terms of timing, or in terms of power. So these 3 parameters will be taken into consideration while going with the optimization of your digital circuit. See, I'll be talking in this particular slide related to front-end designing part. I won't be going with the back-end part. I'll be just going with the front-end part where basically I'll be telling you some particular techniques where we can actually optimize the circuit. So I'll be taking one particular example of digital, and then I'll be going with the optimization of that particular digital circuit. And thereafter we'll be talking all about FPGA, and then we'll be concluding our presentation. So in my first part, I would like to mention the design cycle of your VLSI or design flow of your FPGA, what basically I'm reflecting over here. So we talk about design entry. So design entry basically means what? So normally what happens is that the vendors are basically providing the specification to the design engineers. Depending upon the specification given by the vendors to the design engineers, they basically identify the number of inputs and number of outputs. They go for designing the entire circuit. So now what sort of specification is given by the design by the vendors are basically related to your operating frequency, or say for example, I need to have this much power dissipation from this circuit. It shouldn't be going beyond some particular level. So this sort of specification will be given by the vendors, and accordingly we are there to design that particular circuit. Now the how the basic entries are being done in your tool. So either I'm going with my schematic, either I'm going with my state diagram, or either I'm going with my SDL. So schematic is nothing but the already blocks or already available gates, and basically dragging all the components and connecting it up, and then basically simulating the entire design. Similarly, all the designs, most of the designs can be implemented with the help of your state machine. So that sort of entries also can be done in the tool. Now, very specific, I'll be talking about Xilinx tool only, that is IXC some 15.2 series. So if you work on that particular tool, then you'll be having option of schematic also, you'll be having option of state diagram also. So these are the two parts that can be done. And the third one is related to SDL. So either I'll be following VSDL language, or either I'll be following Verilog to basically write the code for the expected design, and then basically simulating it up. So in the design entry, the entries can be given by all this particular part. And now we'll be talking about the simulation. So once this particular design entry is being done, and then we move on to your simulation part. So now in this particular simulation, what exactly happens is that the tool basically checks the syntax, that how the code has been written. It never goes for actually correcting the code and basically giving the expected output. So simulation part of the tool is basically checking the syntax. And thereafter, once your syntax is correct, it move on to your waveforms. Now this particular waveform shows that whether you are getting the expected output or not. So once if you don't get the expected output, then again you follow the same step, and that means designing the circuit or writing the code for that thing, and then going with the simulation part. So as the name is suggesting, functional simulation, definitely we are checking the behavior of the circuit. That means whether we are getting the expected output or not. So in order to check that particular thing, what we do is that we create the test bench for that particular design, and then we go for testing it out. See, why the test bench is basically required is that you have, say for example, if I say that you have some near about 20 inputs, all right? So 20 inputs, every time it is not possible for me to post the values and get the or check the output. So for that particular part, see 20 inputs are there, definitely I'll be having 2 to the power 20 combinations. So that is not feasible for me to basically every time feed the values and check the output. So for that particular part, we are basically moving on to your test bench. And meanwhile, in the entire process, we are basically going with our timing simulation. Now, once this particular simulation is being done, that means if you get the expected output, then you can move on to your synthesis thing. So if I talk about synthesis, so synthesis is basically defined as optimization plus the conversion. So basically, whatever the code that you are writing is being converted into hardware form, hardware components, and then along with this, we also go with the optimization thing. So once this particular process is being achieved, then you go for implementation. So you create basically the netlist, and thereafter you go with your floor planning and place and route. So here, basically whatever the components that you basically generate from the synthesis are being placed onto this FPGA. And again, this process is being done internally by the tool itself. I would just like to mention over here that my video is not working a little bit. So that's the reason I have switched off my video, and I'm actually working with the mic itself. So pardon me for that particular thing. So I was into the implementation part where I was basically talking about your floor planning, place and route. See, from the researcher point of view, if I'm willing to pursue my PhD in the field of VLSI, so I would like to mention this thing that this is the area where you can actually go for doing research. So either you can go with the floor planning or place and routing. So I'll mention it that how basically you're going with the research over here. See, we have different place and route algorithms. So which is the inbuilt part of your tool, and accordingly the tool is basically placing all the components onto your FPGA. So in this particular area, you can identify the algorithms and you can basically work on those algorithms and see how basically it is being working. Either this is the part, or you can generate your own algorithm and you can prepare one CAD tool, and you can actually check it out. So here there are many algorithms to mention to you. I'll tell you, like KL algorithm is there, like simulating annealing method is there, or you have genetic algorithms. So you can actually go for this. It is an area which is basically open, and very less research has been done into this particular area. So you can actually take this as an PhD research work for your future aspect. So this is where I have talked about one simple design flow which is being done at every part. And similarly in the micro wind also, you can actually implement the things and you can basically check the behavior of the circuit. So this design flow were very much specific to your VLSI one, that to front end part, that is I'm talking about the FPGA design flow. So I'll be basically talking about the design aspect of the circuit, where we can actually go with the optimization part. So we can move on to the next one. So this is a simple architecture of your 1-bit ALU. So we'll be taking this particular example and we'll understand how the optimization is being done. So thereafter, any sort of queries are there, then definitely you are most welcome to ask. So we are basically working on ALU, that means arithmetic and logical unit. So we have one arithmetic unit. You can see over here that we have one arithmetic unit. We have one particular logical unit, and that is being controlled by one particular multiplexer. And accordingly, I'm getting the output. So you can see here that we have taken A, B, and your CN, and we are having some sort of select lines. So here I'm very much specific to the single bit only. We are basically designing a single bit ALU. So that is what basically we have taken. Now we will be moving on to your next part. See, once we have the approach will be what, whenever if I'm designing any sort of the circuit, I'll be basically defining the inputs and my output lines. So in ALU, you know that it's a single bit. Definitely, I'll be having some 3 inputs, and then I'll be having some 3 select lines, and thereafter I'm defining one single output. So the very first step will be following the basic of your digital circuit. That means I'll be designing some sort of truth table. After designing that truth table, I'll be going with some sort of K-map, and then I implement my circuit. Believe me, we should actually follow the method that what we have studied long back in our digital circuit. The same logic we implement in every designing. So today we'll be just seeing that particular part. So once you go with all those things, so you understand that I'll be arithmetic unit is nothing but having some sort of adder blocks in that, because arithmetic it is. I'll be performing some sort of addition. I'll be performing some sort of subtraction. Similarly, in the logical unit, you'll be having some sort of gates, which will be performing those particular functions. So this is what basically comes in our mind whenever we think about the arithmetic unit or the logical unit. So we basically need to optimize this particular thing right now. So before moving ahead, we'll be taking some few functions or operation which need to be performed by this particular ALU. See, ALU is a basic block in any sort of processor. In all the processor, you'll be finding this sort of operation. So in the arithmetic operation, we are basically taking some 8 functions like transfer of A, incrementing the value of A by 1, then adding 2 particular bits, that is A plus B. Thereafter, we are going with A plus B plus carry, and similarly, the next 4 is related to your subtraction, where we'll be talking about A minus B minus borrow in. Similarly, you can see that you are having A minus B, A minus 1, and transfer of A. So these are the 8 functions which are basically taken into consideration for your arithmetic block. Now, similarly for logical operations, we are basically considering 4 functions. That is your OR gate, your AND gate, your XOR gate, and your NOT gate. So this is the part that we have taken into consideration for our arithmetic operation and our logical operation. Now, keeping this all function in our mind, we are just there to frame the truth table for that thing. So basically, we'll understand what is the requirement for the designing. So the requirement will be one logical block having some logical gates, or one arithmetic block having some adder into my circuit. So we'll be basically trying to implement the entire ALU with the help of one particular adder block. We won't be going for any other blocks for that thing. Even for subtraction, we'll be using adder. Even for the logical operations also, we'll be trying to implement it with the help of our adder block. So this is where the optimization of the circuit will be done. So we can actually see how we are basically moving ahead with this thing. So what should be the approach for the designing? So we are basically there to analyze the operations to be performed and using some logical concept to reduce the logic, and whether can I use the same resource for multiple operations or not. So these are the 3 things that we should keep in our mind before designing the circuit. So let us move ahead, taking this all 3 points in our mind. So designing of arithmetic unit, you can see the very first part, that for designing any arithmetic operation, I need a basic component of full adder. So you can see that if I want to implement the subtraction one, similarly, I can actually use the complemented form of my second bit, that is B. You can see over here, A minus B can be done with your form of A plus B complement plus 1. So this, when feeded inside your same adder block, will be generating the functionality of your A minus B. Similarly for A plus B, it is the same block that can be used. So from this, I basically wanted to tell this thing, that the same block can be used as an subtractor. So this is already we have seen many times. Now how we are there to basically achieve this particular part. So we make one particular truth table, and what we do is that we keep the value of Cin to be 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 for all the 8 operations, and keeping the value of X to be constant. So we have kept X as a constant A. Right, and S0, S1, S2 is again the select line that you have seen in the initial architecture. So we have shown some sort of select line. Along with that, we have shown A, B, and your Cn, and you have some output as your C. So here, what we are doing is that we are fixing the value of X to a point of A, and then basically we are generating that what should be the value of your Y in order to achieve the functionality. Now you can see over here, if I want to transfer A, so what I need to do, if you see in the very first row, that Cin is equal to 0, and you have a as x as a and y should be 0 in order to transfer your a. So this is very clear. See, this x, y, Cin is basically the input to your full adder. So if you see that if you do a plus 0, you'll be getting output as a only. So this is how basically we are finding the value of our y. Now you can take some other example also. Similarly, if you see the second one, I need to get the output as a plus 1. So I should be keeping the value of y as 0, and I'll be having x as a and c in your 1. So similarly, we are going with your a plus b and a plus b plus 1. And similarly, if you see now this particular functionality, then you can see here that I need the complemented form in order to get the functionality of subtraction. So I'm using a plus b complement. And similarly for this second part also, you can see the same thing. So this is how basically we are performing, or we are finding the value of our y in order to get that particular operations. So now this is how we have found out the value of y. So further we'll see that how further this particular truth table can further be reduced. So now this is the part where I'm basically showing that S1 and S0, these are the three possible inputs that can be given along with your X constant A and your Y, where we have found out the values for all the operations. Now once this table is being done, you can see that this is how the block is. We have A, we have Cin, we have sum, and we have carry. Now this is the part where we have found out right now the value of y. So we need to generate that what should be the circuit which should be attached with this input in order to get all the functionality of your arithmetic operation. So already the truth table is generated with you. You can basically find it out with the help of K-map what should be the value, or you can basically visualize your truth table very properly and can find it out the things. So I'll just click. So here you can see that we are using 4:1 marks and actually getting all the values of y, which will be giving the arithmetic operation at your sum, having select line as S0 and your S1. So if I go back to my previous slide, so here you can see that the values are 0 for this two condition S0 and S1. Similarly, if you see 0, 1, 0, 1, here again the values are constant, that is B and B. Similarly for 1, 0, you can have the values as B complement, and similarly for your 1 and 1, again you have the values as 1. So now by seeing the truth table only, we have gone for designing this circuit directly, and we are making it as 4:1 marks. So this is how this particular block will be acting as your arithmetic block. Now further, what sort of optimization can be done further? See, this is where we have gone with the direct implementation of the truth table, and we can see that this is what the marks we have received. So if you want, then you can actually reduce this 4:1 marks and you can check it out. So what we are doing is that reduce in the sense I'm basically going with my 2:1 multiplexer further. So now this particular block, I've written the truth table for this particular thing, and this can be basically been written in the form of your this particular part. So now I'm giving at the select point B, and then I'm using S0 and S1 or 2:1 multiplexer. So you can see the beauty of the design that 4:1 marks is further reduced to your 2:1 multiplexer with the same single input variables with no additional gates into this particular circuit. So the same block now can be introduced with your full adder, and then you can get the functionality of your arithmetic unit. So this is how basically the thing has been done. Now coming on to the logical operation. So this is where we move ahead with, because till now whatever we have seen, somewhere we were having the idea that how basically we are there to move in with those particular things, but further we have optimized it with the help of our we have basically optimized it with the help of our 2:1 multiplexer, and we have designed that particular circuit. Now coming on to your logical unit now. Now see, this is the operation that need to be performed. Like you need to perform OR operation, AND operation, XOR operation, and uh, XOR and your NOT operation, which need to be performed. So for this, now what we are doing, we are keeping the scene value as an I have basically told it as cross. That means no sort of values are being given to that, either 0 or either 1. That means it is not having any impact of the impact to your values x. So already you have found out the values of your y. You have this S1, S0 along with you. This is what we have seen. And please remember that S2 was initially 0 for the arithmetic operation, because in the first slide we have seen that we are using some multiplexer at the end where it is defining that when to operate the arithmetic operation and when to operate the logical operation. The moment when the value of S2 will be 1, you can see over here, it will start operating as an logical operation. So here you can actually see one thing, that we have taken S2 as 1 throughout for the logical operation. This values are constant as we have seen above, and C we are not providing any sort of value, and we have found out the value of your Y, that is 0, B complement and 1. Now we need to find out the value of your X. So, but remember this thing, that we are using the same full adder to design this OR gate, or to achieve the functionality of my OR gate. So what you need to do is that, so here we can see the value, right? So here we can see that the value of X should be A plus B. Now why we are saying that the values should be A plus B? So for that we'll be seeing this particular table. So here you can see that, please keep in mind the two input AND gate having A, B, and your output as Y. So output as any value you can assume Z. Now see here I have given A and B. So this is the truth table of your AND gate. And here you can see this is the output that I'm getting for those particular input. And you remember that the value of Y is nothing but 0. So which is equivalent to your B. So please remember this thing, that if I'll just go back to my slide so that it will be clear to you that what basically I'm talking about. You can see this full adder where this X and Y is over here, and then you have A over here, and similarly this Y is being considered as your B, and this is your Cn where I'm not providing any values in the case of my logical operation, and thereafter I am there to generate my sum and your carry. So this is the value that we need to find now by keeping the value of Y or keeping the value of your B. So now here you can see that Y is being treated as your B. That is what I wanted to tell you. And the value of Y was 0. So it will be just following the values of your B. So we have kept it as 0, 1, 0, 1. Now we are there to find out the value for our X in order to get the functionality of this AND gate. So any one of you can basically tell me that what will be the value of my X over here, treating that it's an input to your full adder. Okay. So we are basically seeing this thing that x value will be 0. That means at the x I am giving 0, at y I am giving 0, and c I didn't define any value for it. So once I'm giving at the input of my full adder, then I'll be getting this value as 0 plus 0, and your output will be 0. Similarly for the second part also you need the output as 0. But you can see over here the value of y is 1. So I need the value of x and 1. Why? Because whenever you know that whenever there are even number of ones, I'll be getting output as 0 when I'll be talking about the addition thing. So here the value of x will be your 1. Now similarly for the second part, we can see that it is again I required 0, so the value of x will be 0. And in the last part, you can see that I need the value of 1 at my output. So I'll be forcing the value of 0 to my x input. So this will be giving you the value for my x. So for the entire process, you can see that we are having the value of 1 over here. So definitely corresponding value of a and b is what? That is a bar and your b. So for my second value, that means for performing my AND operation, I should be having the value of x as your a bar b. So this is how we are basically doing the thing. So any sort of queries do you have till here? Any queries, or can we move further? Okay, so we'll be just moving on to our next part now. So we have already seen that this is how we are doing over here. We have already found out the value of y, and then we are finding the value of our x, and that is nothing but a bar b for my AND operation. So for my second part of AND, I am going with a bar b. Similarly, for my third equation now, I need to find out the values of my x over here. So I'll be just finding out that particular part. So I'll be following the same process. I'm giving one second example for this thing. So as you know that the value of y is equal to b bar. So now we'll be starting with 1 b bar. That means the complemented form of this particular b. So I'll be keeping this as 1, this as 0, and thereafter it will be 1, and thereafter it will be 0. So now I need to find out the value of x so that I'm getting the value of XOR gate as 0 for the given inputs. So the value of x, definitely here it will be again 1. The reason is that I will be adding it. So again the even number of ones will be there. So I'll be getting output as 0. So this is the value that we are getting. Similarly for the second one, you can see that I need the output as 1. So definitely this value of x should be 1. And thereafter again you can find it out that this is third value as 1. So I'll be keeping the third value as your 0, and then 0 0 you'll be getting output as 0. So here again you can see again if you solve it with the help of your K-map. So this b bar plus b will be your 1, and this is nothing but my a bar. So the value of x will be lying as your a bar. So in order to get the functionality of your XOR gate, I'll be keeping this as your a bar. So this is the third function that we are getting over here. So this is nothing but b complement only. So this is b bar only, and this is a bar. Now the last one is achieving my NOT gate. So you know that it is a single input and your single output. So and the value of y is equal to 1 throughout, and you need the value of NOTing of b. So I'll be taking just this particular part. So what should be the value over here? That is known to you because it's an addition. You'll be having this as 0. Thereafter, again adding this particular thing, again you'll be getting 0 over here. This will be giving you 1, and this will be giving you 0 over here. So you can see that this is how we are basically getting the behavior of our NOT gate. And once you solve this particular part, so you can see one, you are basically receiving at A bar B plus AB. So here this is varying 0 and 1. So this gets equal to your 1, and you have only B. So you get the value of B. Now, can you just see whenever we design any sort of circuit, then we try to basically optimize it in every respect, and every digital block is having the application. That means, say for example, if I want to create NOT gate with the help of my XOR gate, that means what? That is the application of your XOR gate. That means I can basically generate my NOT gate with the help of my XOR gate. So can anyone tell me that how basically we can generate? If I have one XOR gate, can I generate NOT gate with the help of my XOR gate? Yes or no? Anyone of you can actually tell me? Yes. Any one of you can actually help me out for solving that XOR gate using getting the behavior of my NOT gate using XOR gate. See, the behavior of XOR gate says what, that whenever I have the similar inputs, my output will be 0, else it will be 1. So we have two input XOR gate. So definitely to one input, either we can provide a constant voltage or constant 1, or I can actually force it to your 0 in order to get the behavior of my NOT gate, because single we have two inputs. So every input will be having only possible combination of 2 bits only. That will be either 0 or either 1, right? So what should I be doing it? So definitely I'll put one particular input of my XOR gate to my high volt to my plus 5 volt, and definitely whenever at the second input, if it is 0, then definitely plus 5 volt will be considered as your 1. So I'll be getting 0 and 1. So my output will be 1 for that particular case. For the second one, if it is 1 and 1, then definitely I'll be getting output as 0. So definitely with the help of XOR gate, I can basically generate my NOT gate. Now, similarly, the second part, if we go further in our designing part, can I design the latch with the help of my multiplexer? See, latch, if I talk about, then definitely it's an sequential circuit. And if I tell multiplexer, so definitely I see that it's an combinational one. So can I generate that particular latch with the help of my multiplexer? Can any one of you can basically answer it up? So can we do it? I think that Smita madam has answered the question for that XOR gate. It's great. It's correct that we should be having one particular input as your logic 1. So can you answer me this particular part? Can I design latch with the help of my XOR gate? Actually, I'm seeing the chat box. You all can actually give your answer over there. I'm repeating the question once again. Can I design latch using multiplexer. Correct. That means we can design it. So Smita, can you actually throw any light on this? How basically we can design it up? See, because I'll just tell you, latch is basically one level triggered flip flop, I can say, because any changes which occurs in the level is reflected at your output. That is nothing but my latch. That means I call it as I'll be taking the example of D latch only. So that is how we basically go with. So definitely it will be having some sort of feedback. Now, say for I just wanted to know which particular multiplexer you are there to use. Either you are there to use 2:1 multiplexer or 4:1 multiplexer or any other multiplexer. I think Meenakshi has given the answer as 2:1 multiplexer. Very true. We are there to use 2:1 multiplexer. Meenakshi, can I know that? In multiplexer, basically we are having 3 inputs for my 2:1 mux. That is 2 input and 1 select line, and I'll be having one particular output. Now, very
Yes, sir.
specific. If I take D latch, so D latch, I'll be considering one as D input. The second one will be
Yes.
your clock input, and you'll be having the third one as your output.
Output.
Correct. So we'll be having 2 inputs and 1 output in the case of D latch. But in the case of flip flop, in the case of your multiplexer, I'll be having 3 inputs and your single output. So at the output side, I don't have any problem. But at the input side, how you are there to manage it?
So at the select line, we can attach a clock, and
Okay.
suppose we want a positive level latch, level latch. Then at the input number 1, that is channel number 1, we will attach our input, and our clock, whenever it is go 1, it will be selecting my channel number 1, and then only my input will be considered as the output.
So
When
what?
the level, so select
What?
line basically is a clock.
Okay, I understood that thing. In the select line, you want to keep it as clock, which will be basically working on your positive level, right?
Yes.
And in the point number 1, that is your pin number 1, you are
Input.
there to force your input. That is your D. What about
Yes.
your pin number 0?
Pin number 0, we can connect it back to the to the output. We can have the feedback across that.
Correct. So that is what basically that particular feedback is basically helping or converting that particular multiplexer into your latch. So it is a very
Yes.
correct answer, no doubt in that. So that is how basically we are working on with. So whenever if I and similarly you can design even flip flop with the help of your multiplexer. So in that particular case also, any idea, Meenakshi, that how many flip flop will be required for my flip flop now? I think Sapnil has also answered the question for that. It is also correct, no doubt in that. So Sapnil, can you tell me that how many flip flops will be required for my for designing flip flop with the help of multiplexer? How many multiplexer would be required? I'll just give you 2 minutes. Just try once, and then we'll be back to our design. Correct. Vinod, I think Ashish, right. Basically, I'll be using some 2 flip flops to design my. Basically, I'll be using 2 multiplexer to design my flip flop. So it's correct, no doubt in that. All right. So now basically we'll be moving back to our part, and definitely at the end I'll be giving you one more particular analysis, because I think that all the people are very excellent in designing aspect. So definitely it will be more interesting if we go on for the last part. So here basically now you can see that we have received the knotting operation, and we are having this as B. Now finally we have got all the expected value of my X, that is A plus B for my OR operation, A bar B for my AND operation, and similarly A bar for my XOR. So this is nothing but B complement. That line is missing, but it is B bar. And similarly your X is equal to B. So again for the NOT operation. So we have received basically all the operations now. Now again we have designed one particular K map. This is known to everyone. And thereafter we have received one particular equation. So this is the final equation that basically I'm getting for my X. And here at the top, you can see that why the value of C was given as, don't care, it can be, I didn't force any value over there. So if you see here, the value of S2 is very important because that was the MSB bit for me. If I give it as 0, it will be acting as an arithmetic block. And if I give S2 as 1, it will start acting as my logical operation. So this is the entire circuit. Now, if I give here S2 as 0, definitely it will become 1. So whatever the value that you give at C in, that will pass in on to your full adder C in input. So this was the part of my arithmetic operation. The moment when the S2 value is equal to 1, so the output of this NOT gate will be 0. So you know that irrespective of this particular input, if this particular pin is 0, definitely all the outputs will be 0 for this particular AND gate. So that's the reason we didn't specify any value for our C in. So you can see over here that we have used just one particular full adder to design my entire arithmetic and logical operation. So this is how we are basically optimizing the circuit. And you can see that no other blocks have been used over here. Initially, we have seen in our first slide that we have gone for using one particular arithmetic block, which was having some sort of adders. And the second block was my logical unit, which was basically using some sort of logical gates. And thereafter, I had used one 2:1 multiplexer, and S2 pin was basically fed to that 2:1 multiplexer, which was basically selecting that which operation is required at my output. So there were many gates that was being used in that particular design. So here you can see that we have minimized the entire thing by using just single full adder. Right. So this is how basically we are optimizing our circuit. So this is one of the example that we have taken. Now I'll be just showing you the simulation and synthesis of this particular ALU, because that is how we are actually moving ahead. We have gone with designing now, and now we are moving on to our simulation and our synthesis. So for writing the code for this particular ALU, we have gone for using VHDL. So as it is known to everyone that VHDL is nothing but very high speed integrated circuit hardware descriptive language. So that is the language that we are basically using for writing the code for this. You can even use Verilog also to write the code for this particular module. So here you can see that initially we go with our library declaration. So that was being done, and here we have gone for using the entity where we are defining the number of inputs and the output lines. So if you remember that we have been talking about this input at our initial design itself, that is the black box, you can say, where basically we have defined just the A, B, and your C in, and similarly we had some 3 select lines, and we were having the final 2 outputs, that was your sum and your carry. So that is what been mentioned over here also. And once you define this particular part, then you move on to the architecture, which basically define the behavior of your circuit. So here basically we have gone for using the structural style of coding where I'm basically calling the component of my arithmetic unit. So this is nothing but one adder block, which is basically performing the function of addition. And similarly, I have called the unit of my logical unit, which is again forming the operation of my logical things. And then I have gone with 2:1 marks. So if you see all this component, it is similar to your first design that we have done it. So this is how we are going with the port mapping of the entire thing. And this is known to you that how basically we are connecting all the wires between the blocks and then generating the final output. So now the second one is that what we have done at the end. So that was the first one, that where we were basically calling the blocks and simulating all the designs and getting the output. Now we have gone with the second, what we have done, that is nothing but the optimization part. So we have optimized the circuit and then we have written the code for this. Similarly, again, here you can see that you will be having the same inputs and the output lines. There won't be any sort of difference. And this is known as your port modes. Basically, we have 4 types of port modes in your VSDL. So we are basically taking 2 port modes over here. That is your in and your out. Beside this, we have in out and your buffer also. So here basically it's a combinational block. I'm not using any sort of feedback. I'm not talking about in out or any sort of buffer over here. Now similarly here what we are doing is that we are calling, if you remember the circuit diagram, so there was one full adder and you were having 2:1 multiplexer and you were having one AND gate with input as your NOT gate, right? Beside that we didn't have any other components. So here basically we'll be calling the full adder component. So this is the full adder component that we have called. Similarly, we have gone with 2:1 multiplexer over here. So this is what we have done. And then we have gone with one block which is known as logical expression, where we are considering A, B, S0, S1, and then we are having the out. So this is the part that we have done with your X. So that is the part that has been taken into consideration over here. So here the program of that particular thing was being written, and then thereafter you can see here the port mapping of all the 3 blocks has been done. So basically, just for your knowledge, we have 2 types of port mapping, which is component instantiation. You can say that we have named and position associations. So here basically we are actually going with the position association. So the way we are defined in our component, the same way we are defining over here also. If this is output, then it will be output in your full adder also. If it is input, then it should be input at that particular position. So this is why we call it as position association. And similarly, the second one is your name association. So name association can vary anywhere. There is no need to follow the position. So this is what we have done in this particular thing. And then we have gone for the output. So this is the output waveform that we are visualizing over here. So this way you can actually check the output. And these are the waveforms. Now this is what is the thing. See, we have used the Vertex board. You can use any other boards also, no problem in that. Because it's not a very big circuit that I need to go with the specification of my board and then need to use that thing. Even this can be done with your CPLD also. So, but here just we have used that Vertex series. So this is how we have done over here. Now here you can see that whenever you are there to see the synthesis output, you can actually see one particular part in that that you'll be finding in the similar way. We'll be having some IOs. It will be showing some lookup tables. It will be having some sort of flip-flops or some sort of multiplexers. See, any architecture in your any internal architecture, if you see of your multiplexer of your FPGA, then definitely you'll be finding some sort of lookup tables. You'll be finding some 2:1 multiplexer, and you'll be having some 4:1 multiplexer, not beyond 4:1 multiplexer. And thereafter, you'll be having some sort of flip-flops. So that to D flip-flops. So that's the reason we give stress on this thing, that on multiplexer, only for one particular reason, is that we should be able to analyze that any circuit can be designed with the help of my multiplexer. Because as we are using in the CLBC, I think that you might be knowing about the CLBs, that is configurable logic block, which basically have some function generators inside that. So which is in the form of your lookup tables, and beside this you have some sort of multiplexer, and you have some sort of D flip-flop. So that is one particular CLB architecture. Likewise, we have many CLBs in one particular FPGA architecture. So this is showing one particular part where I'm using some IOs of in numbers, that is A. Similarly, we have XOR, and basically you can see the lookup tables, that is 3 and the 4 lookup. That is nothing but the inputs, that basically it is specifying 3 and your 4. And similarly, you have multiplexer, that is 1. And you can see over here that what is the resource utilization of the board of that particular FPGA board. So you can see it is a very minimum, but it's a small circuit. So we are using 2, 4 and your 8. So not too many slices has been used. So the maximum combinational part delay is your 10.584 nanoseconds. So this is the entire delay of the circuit. And one more thing I wanted to actually ask you all, that now if I tell that it's an IO, right? Can anyone tell me what is the internal structure of your IOs? More specific. Now, say for example, we all are talking, we all know about microprocessor and microcontrollers. In that, we basically have the bidirectional bus, and we see that data lines are basically bidirectional. So what basically it is? What sort of architecture is there inside this bidirectional bus? What sort of hardware is basically there inside this? And any one of you can actually tell me that which sort of hardware basically, and how it is basically used? Because we all talk about the bidirectional part, right? Here also we are seeing it's an IOs. We are not saying specific that it is input pin, this is my output pin. We are saying the same pin is acting as an input as well as my output. So which sort of hardware or which sort of circuit is being used inside that particular part? See, it can't be any sort of wires inside that. It will be some sort of hardware only. It will be some sort of circuit. See, before that, there was some few questions by Sapnil and Ashish. They were talking about the slices. So I'll just clear that and then I'll come back to the question. See, slices are nothing but, if you see the architecture of your FPGA, you'll be finding many small square blocks, right? So that square blocks are basically known as configured logic blocks, that are CLBs. Those CLBs are basically known as your slices. So this is what basically it means about. See, here we have some 768 slices. That means we are having 768 CLBs, and inside one particular CLB, we have some 2 function generators, which will be having some sort of lookup tables. We'll be having some sort of multiplexer, that is 2:1 multiplexer and 4:1 multiplexer. Apart from this, we'll be having some sort of D flip-flop, right? So this will be the internal structure of one particular CLB, and this always varies. That function generator will be 2 or either 3, that again varies. So, but remember that we have some sort of lookup table inside one particular slice or your configurable logic block, and we have some sort of D flip-flop, we have some sort of multiplexers, and we have some sort of gates. So this is into one particular part. So that is what exactly it means by slices. So we have number of slices. If we go for the enhanced number of input and output lines, that time they will be using all these slices or all the CLBs. I think Ashish, it is clear to you whatever I have told you right now. Yes. Is it fine? Swapnil?
That's fine, sir.
Yeah, fine. See, now the answer was given as by Mr. Manoj Kumar that it's a tri-state buffer. So very correct. Can I know that how many tri-state buffers are you there to use for this? Correct. So we'll be using some two tri-state buffers. See, if I tell, as the name is suggesting, that tri-state. So basically, we have three states in our tri-state buffers. So whenever at the enable, that is the third pin, whenever if I'm giving it 0, it starts as an open circuit. So it acts as an high impedance. Whenever I give enable as an 1, it will start whatever the input that you are giving, that you'll be getting at your output. So this basically give you three states. You get 0, you get 1, and you get high impedance. So that's the reason we call it as tri-state buffer. And if you attach two tri-state buffers back to back, so that will give you the behavior of your bidirectional. It's very correct. So I'll be using some two tri-state buffers for designing my or to achieve my bidirectional functionality. Now this is now the second part is about the combinational part delay, that this is 10.58 for nanoseconds that we have been basically received from the entire circuit. So if I do the inverse of this particular delay, I'll be getting the operating frequency of my circuit. So I think that it is very clear that how we basically calculate the delay in the circuit. So we basically consider the worst case path whenever I'm talking about my delay. So worst case path is the number of gates that are present inside one particular path from my input to the output. That is the longest path from my input to my output. So that particular longest path is basically considered for calculating the delay. So this is how we are basically using that particular thing. Now, similarly, you can see that after the reduction of it was before the reduction, this is the synthesis report for my circuit, which we have seen right now, that is the optimized one. So here you can see that we have gone with 10.148 nanoseconds, and here it is 10.584. So definitely we have actually reduced the path delay. So in that way, along with the path delay, if you can see that this is one of the important parameter, as we know that in any of the ICs, we need to work on our timing, area, and your power dissipation. So here basically we have reduced the delay. So definitely we are actually improving the frequency of that particular circuit. So this is how basically we go for optimizing the design at the architectural level for the further development of the circuit. So this is how basically we have gone with the optimization part. Now after this, I just wanted to okay, there was one more question by Sapnil that can we find the dynamic or static power for the given design? Definitely we can find the dynamic power dissipation. See, I'm telling in a very broad way. See, whatever the circuit that we are basically designing over here, or implementing it at the backend design by using any of the logic family, that is either I'm using TTL or either I'm using CMOS. So at present, we are basically using the CMOS technology. So you know that in CMOS technology, the power dissipation is less because you know that the total power dissipation is being taken with the help of static plus dynamic. So in the case of CMOS, we get static as 0 and dynamic is there some particular point. Even static you have very minimum, as compared to the rest of the TTL logic circuits. So there basically the dynamic power dissipation is being calculated. So in your tool, if you go to the tool IXC 15.1 series or 14.1 series, then you will be finding one power analyzer over there at your left hand side of the taskbar. So you can basically click on that particular part and you can actually find it out. So that power analyzer will be giving you the dynamic power. So is it clear, Sapnil? This was the question. I think that I have answered for that thing. And you have also written as on Xilinx platform. Can we find it? Yes, we can find it on Xilinx platform. You have one power analyzer term which is being there in your left hand side of your taskbar. So you can basically go to that and you can actually check it. And now just for your that I just want to understand that how well now you have started thinking in that particular aspect. Now say for example, we all know about straight line equation. So straight line equation is nothing but y is equal to mx plus c. Now if I say you to design one IC for this particular y is equal to mx plus c, so what will be your answer? You can actually talk to me on this, or basically you can give that how you are there to approach for this numerical. I'm again repeating one question. Y is equal to your mx plus c. I want to design one circuit for this, or I want to design one IC for this. So being a designer, what will come into your mind first? Is my question entirely complete, or do you need any sort of input for this? Yes, any one of you.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Swapnil is here.
Yes,
Sir, here we are going to design that means the circuit for line equation y equals to mx plus c.
Correct.
So can if you are going with that Boolean expressions, if you consider the Boolean expressions in place of taking the integral value in the case of here binary, so we can design it just by a plain Boolean equations. But if you are going in case of your integral part, that means like integer number, if you consider, so we have to go with some complex design.
Yes, definitely we'll consider the integer one only, right? Like y is equal to 4x plus c, right? So
Okay, sir.
I have received one more thing, Sapnil, one more in chat box that Mr. Manoj has given the answer as AND gate, OR gate. Please remember one thing. See, it can't be AND gate or OR gate. See, because mx plus c it is. Definitely, I've given one example like m. I'm using it as 4. See, the very first question should be coming in your mind is that what should be the value of my m and what should be the value of my c. So here I'll be just specifying the value of m is equal to your 4 and x is of 3 bits. I'm repeating it. 4 is m is equal to 4, x is of 3 bits, and c is constant value as your 1. Now, Mr. Manoj, you can see that it's not an AND gate because it's 4 multiplied by your x. So definitely it will be some sort of multiplier. It will be an arithmetic operation. It can't be a logical operation over there. And similarly, plus c. So plus c can't be again OR gate because it's a logical one. So I need to go with some sort of adder thing. So now I have given you some hint. I have told you that you have the value of m is equal to 4, x is equal to 3, and c is equal to 1. Now, what sort of, I'll ask the question, you just give me the answer. How many inputs and how many outputs are required for this circuit? Because as I told initially also that we should every time define the number of inputs and number of outputs in our circuit. Before, without that, we won't be able to proceed it. So it should be very clear that how many inputs are there and how many outputs are there. So how many inputs and how many outputs for this particular circuit? Mr. Manoj has written is that 4 cross 3 multiplier. Manoj, first we'll identify the number of inputs and the number of outputs. M is equal to 4, right? And the value of X is equal to 3 bits, right? And your C is equal to 1. So now what will be the number of input lines and what will be the number of output lines? Definitely you need to work on your bits. You can't work on your integers. So whatever the integer values are being given, you can convert it into your bit forms, and then you can tell me that how many input lines and how many output lines. So you have mentioned it 8. So this is input. So input lines you are saying 8. Okay. So output is how many? Output is 1. Right. Now I'll just clarify this to each and every one that your M is 4. In order to represent 4 in your binary, you need what? 3 bits. That is 100. Am I right or wrong? Right. Smita has also given one particular answer, that is 7-bit output. Smita, I'll be coming back to that particular part. First, yeah, correct it is. That means X value will be 100, and similarly, the value of X is 3 bits. So this becomes 3 plus 3, that becomes 6, right? And you have 1, that is constant. For C, we have given it as 1. So total, how much it will be? 3 bits for 4, 3 bits for my X. Then I'm going with 1 bit of my C. So total, how many inputs are there? So I'll be having total input as your 7, not 8. Do you agree with this? Manoj? Okay. Smita, it is fine. That means I'm there to go with my 7 inputs. And how many output lines now? See, I have defined your inputs now. That is 4 is break up into bits form. That is 3. X is of 3 bits and plus 1 is for your constant. So I'm getting some 7 input lines. And how many output lines will be there now? Yes, how many output lines? Yeah, I'm getting many answers. Great. Sapnil has told it's will be 8. 7 also has been given. See, now I'll just tell you that 4 is the value, that is 100, and your 3 bit. I told X is of 3 bit. So the maximum value of that X bit will be how much? 7. Because X is equal to 3 bits. So the maximum value of 3 bits will be what? 111. So all 111 will be nothing but my 7. So 7 get multiplied by my 4. That becomes how much? 4 into 7 becomes 28, and 28 plus 1 becomes 29. So in order to represent 29 in my binary, how many bits are required? Correct, very true. So Smita, here is the correct answer, that is 5. So we'll be having some 7 inputs and you have 5 outputs. So this is the first part that the designer will be doing while designing the circuit. Now the second part comes that by seeing we can understand it will be having some sort of multiplier, it will be having some sort of adder blocks. So now before going or making a conclusion to that particular part, will be drawing the truth table for this particular thing, that is M, X, and your 1, and we'll be seeing the outputs. That means we'll be having 7 inputs and my 5 outputs. So once if you go through the entire process of this, believe me, you don't require any sort of hardware for that. It is simple wire that is being connected from your input to your output. We are not using any sort of adder circuit or multiplier circuit inside this. So this is how basically our approach should be, and we should be able to design the circuit in a better way. So from my side, anything, one more question has come. Sir, can you please repeat how 4 bits representing 4 decimal? 4 bits. See, I told, see, M was integer value. M was integer value as 4. Correct, correct. Now you have written something here. That is 4 into 7, 28, 20 plus 28 plus 1 is 29, right? So in order to represent 29 in binary, how many bits are required? So we'll be requiring some 5. That is very correct. No doubt in that. So I was saying that M value is 4. So M value is 4 in decimal. I need, so I need to convert that M equal to 4 into my binary. Because see, whatever the inputs I'll be giving in the form of bits. That will be 1 or 0. So in order to represent 4, I require some 3 bits. And similarly for X, we have 3 bits, and then we are actually solving it. So this is the thing. So I basically conclude this particular session. So I think any sort of queries do you have apart from this? But believe me, anyone who wants to pursue PhD in this particular area can give stress on your implementation part, that is floor planning and place and routing. So you can basically go with that particular thing. I'll just stop sharing this particular part. So any sort of queries do you have, you can basically ask me.
On behalf of Dr. Rajendra Gode Institute of Technology and Research, Amravati, and organizing team of today's program, I, Professor K.M. Pimpre from Electronics and Telecommunication Department. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. My heart fills with lots of gratitude and respect for our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Sanjeev Sharma sir, for not only sparing their valuable time for us to grace this occasion, but also for enlightening us with their commendable talk on the subject. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for clearing our concept and enhancing our understanding pertaining to the optimization of digital circuit in VLSI. You have put your best efforts to make this event unforgettable. Really, we are highly obliged you. Thank you, sir. We are also thankful to all participants for attending and listening this program patiently. We are grateful to AICTE ISTE for helping us to arrange flags for today's event and making our institute look even more beautiful. I am declaring that today's all sessions are ended here. Thank you once again, everyone.
Hello.
I request all the participants to join tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. So today's session is completed. We will meet tomorrow.
Sir, can you share the chat box, please? It is problem in the Ratnagiri area, sir.
Okay. What do you want? You want feedback link?
Yes, sir. Because Ratnagiri area we do not have network. It is goes on only fluctuating, sir.
Okay. Just I am sharing a feedback link.